Horrendous contact very nearly. He just to the outside line. He breaks so much later. Masker can't defend. He's got the outside line for the second part, and he can't hold on.
Going the long way around. We're going to be 3 wide for the lead as they all come to the line. Who is going to take it in the end?
And here comes Lockwood. He's going to make the move to the outside. Quinn tries to force him off a little bit, but there he goes. It's going to be side by side through turn 1.
Will he be able to cover him off? He does. Weaving back to the left-hand side. Reynolds is trying everything. The kitchen sink is being thrown at it.
They're leaning on each other. Coming into turn number 3. It's going to be a drag race through 3 and 4. Coming back to the line. Here comes Frisch on the bottom.
Bouchard's going to hold the inside. Tries to be the late breaker here. They're going to be side by side through the final chicane. They bang doors, but keep it clean.
As they're still 4 wide on the run down into the back straightaway. Demerit's looking for a line as well. What is going on in Michigan?
Novak into the fence. They're still beating and banging.
Oh,
and to the line.
He is much faster coming through there. Is there damage on Challenger? Abramitis is ahead. There's going to be a race to the line. Who is going to get it?
Welcome everyone to one of the true homes of motorsport, Legacy Silverstone, where speed, bravery, and precision define every lap. Today, the ASRL grid faces a fast-flowing circuit packed with legendary corners and unforgiving racing lines. It's time to strap in. The lights are about to go out, folks. Thank you very much for joining us, folks. Thank you very much for staying tuned. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm your host, Sagar Bakshi. Joining me at the end of the broadcast booth, brought to you by Racers Nexus, is Brian Zinn. And the track cameras brought to you by TrackCameras22.com. Big shout out to our title sponsor, Apex Sim Racing. For all your sim racing needs, check out ApexSimRacing.com. Taking a look at our calendar, we're headed into week 8 of Legacy Silverstone Circuit. Then we're headed to Autodromo Internazionale Monza, and then Sebring to round out week number 10 for this championship. Taking a look at the points in the GT3 category, it'll be Keon Maduro, Corey Rutherford, Victor Aldrich, Daniel Miglin, Kenneth Estep, Ty Morasco, Nidikume, and Mike Hamlin. In the C7s, it's Christopher Hill, Damian Dania, Brian Dees, James Watson, Travis Fleming, Joshua Rutherford, Brody Gunter, and Dave Seats, rounding out the 8 participants or the 8 lead drivers in the C7s. For the teams, it's Team Watson Racing, work in progress, TWRSJ Division, MFRD, Team Fastish, ESGI Motorsport, Limitless Motorsport, and JK Racing. Now, where are we racing tonight, folks? Well, it's going to be Silverstone, the 2008 layout. So we are located in Silverstone, UK. This is a track that opened up in 1948, a former World War II Royal Air Force bomber station. And its layout of the triangle reflects its such use. Track length of 3.19 miles or 5.14 kilometers. Still don't know what a kilometer is, but we've got 17 corners. 8 to the left and 9 to the right. Now, Brian, let's get over trackside and see what some of these drivers are all up to for their session.
Yep, as you said, our drivers tonight are tackling the legacy layout of Silverstone, the home of Formula One, and currently have qualifying going with just over 5.5 minutes left. Damian Dania, one of our championship contenders, currently sitting on provisional pole. He's got himself a 141.177 to his name. Christopher Hill, his championship rival, is currently 7/10 back, sitting in P2, and then it's another 4/10 back to James Watson, who has had himself a couple of good rounds as of late, as he looks to try and claw his way back into the title fight and take that from 2 contenders to 3. Over in GT3, only one time set on the board so far, and that's by the 88 driver Victor Aldrich and his Acura NSX GT3 machine. He's currently sitting on provisional pole with a 149.714. And just as I finish that, Nitakume, who we've seen in his lovely Ferrari as of late, steals that away with a 148.633. So as drivers continue around, putting their laps in, we've got about 4.5 minutes left in qualifying here around the old layout of Silverstone. For those that are very familiar with Silverstone, you will see some marked changes from the current layout, which, as you alluded to, came about after the 2009 season and completely reworked various sections of the track, including relocating the start-finish section as well, and building a whole new pit lane complex. But yeah, these drivers tonight will have the same fast-flowing complex of corners that they're familiar to having on the new layout. They existed on the old layout as well, especially the S's section of Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel, one of my favorite sections on any race course anywhere in the world. And these drivers will look to be tackling the 17-turn road course, as I said, home of Formula One and home of British motorsports in general. Get some more times coming across the board. Looks like Yana Maduro has himself up into provisional pole in GT3 with a 147.056, a second and a half up on previous pole holder provisionally of Nitakume. And in Corvette Daytona Prototype, Christopher Hill has taken over the top, and Brody Gunter, who has come on strong in weeks of late, has set himself in P2 7/1000ths of a second back from Christopher Hill.
The Goldmine Racing Team out there looking for it tonight. And here at Silverstone, it'll be awfully challenging for the drivers to have to contend with one another. Not too many heavy braking zones for the drivers to be able to try to get overtakes in, so it'll have to happen in some of these faster sections. And it's going to be interesting to see the multi-class racing take place here because Silverstone is so wide. There should be plenty of berth for racing room to be given to each other, especially around the straightaways, especially coming down the Hamilton Straight, the Hangar Straight, and on the run to Copse. But perhaps you run into a slower car or the GT3 class at an area like Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel. Now that will really throw a wrench into your strategy and what you'll be able to do for your lap. So how do you think that traffic is going to play into this long endurance race tonight, with the drivers expecting to make at least 2 pit stops?
Yeah, they're definitely going to have their challenge in navigating the traffic, certainly compared to last week at the Charlotte Roval. As you said, a much wider, much more flowy track compared to the Roval layout that they had last week. But 60 minutes, it is the second endurance race of the season and final endurance race of the season as well for ASRL, their first one being back at the Nürburgring GP circuit a few weeks back. So definitely will be exercising patience going through the S's, Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel complex as well. Certainly in the final section as well, going through Brooklands and Luffield onto the old front straightaway, through Woodcott and the old pit complex. So there is plenty of opportunity to pass these GT3 cars. You will definitely see the pace difference. I mean, going off of our qualifying times here, you're looking at a 6-second pace difference between our fastest runners in each class. So definitely will expect them to catch the GT cars at least 2 or 3 times, I would envision. But not every corner is going to be a passing corner.
That's very true. And I think that's something to express to the drivers as well, that patience could very well be a key to the victory here tonight, that not every corner is necessarily going to be a passing corner for them to be able to negotiate. Now, the session is just about completed. We're waiting for the official results, and we'll get the lineup posted here in just a few moments' time as we close out the final 25 seconds of qualifying. Again, big shout out and thank you to everybody joining us, as there's Nancy in the YouTube chat. Hello there, Nancy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. It really helps us out here at the Racers Nexus, and it costs nothing to be able to do so. Would really appreciate that love and support here from the Racers Nexus broadcast booth. Let's check out the weather, Brian, and see what the weather conditions are looking like here in Silverstone. Right now, it's 64 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 degrees Celsius. The track temperature is going to be 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 degrees Celsius, cloudy conditions, and 92% humidity.
Yeah, fairly cool evening for England. Thankfully, we have no rain here for our race tonight. Certainly a very pretty sky overseeing our drivers, but we're going to get into the lineup. And speaking of pretty, we say week in and week out, these car liveries are top notch. But Christopher Hill and Brody Gunter are going to line up on the front row. His championship rival in Damian Daney is going to line up behind him in P3, and he's got new driver Thomas Rump to his outside in P4. James Watson in that highlighter yellow Corvette Daytona Prototype is going to line up P5 next to Travis Fleming in P6. Brian Dees is going to line up P7 next to Joshua Rutherford. And Sagar, take us through our GT3 lineup.
Keon Maduro is going to lead us in P9 for the GT3s next to Nidik Kume in P10. Victor Aldrich in P11 alongside Corey Rutherford in P12. Daniel Miglin in P13 with Ty Morasco in P14. Cole Maxwell in P15. Ken Estep in P16. And Martin Chindamo in P17.
And as our drivers pull away to start their full pace lap, I gotta ask, being that we have two different versions of Silverstone available to us, Legacy and the current layout, which is your preferred favorite layout for racing?
I think I learned on the Legacy layout with only one set of pit stalls, so it was easier for me to learn. And then once the new layout came out and there were two pit stalls, I always had an issue remembering where I was on track, especially during a 24-hour charity event that we were doing once for Halloween. I could not remember where I was in the middle of the night on my stints, if I was coming through Cops or if I was coming through Abbey and the Hamilton Straight, especially when it was dark out and the only thing illuminating the track was headlights here in Silverstone. So it was a bit tricky to say the least, but yeah, we were able to overcome the difficulties there.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. There's a certain nostalgia to the Legacy layout of Silverstone that I really appreciate, and it took me a while when we switched over from the Legacy to the current layout to realize that you were launching straight into some of the corners that previously had been kind of halfway through the lap on the old layout. So, but there's something about going through the old Abbey and Hangar, or the bridge kind of short straight, and actually going under the bridge that was just really cool on the Legacy layout that I miss with the new layout. There's a little bit of character that got lost in my opinion, but the new track, it obviously was updated for safety reasons and new regulations driven by F1 and that sort of thing, and it did bring international sports car racing with the dawn of WEC coming to Silverstone. So it has its peak moments as well, but I do miss the charm that Legacy Silverstone has.
That's very true, all done in the nature of safety. And this track dates all the way back to the inaugural Formula One World Championship race on May 13th, 1950. It was actually attended by King George VI, making it the first and only F1 race to be graced by a reigning British monarch.
I did not know that. I'm actually surprised the British monarchy has not attended more races at Silverstone, given its importance to that of British history overall. I mean, certainly with the number of F1 teams that are headquartered in and around the grounds of Silverstone. I feel like almost everything F1 related that not Ferrari badged is located somewhere in the vicinity of Silverstone.
Yeah. Now we're getting ready for the race start here in just a few moments' time. The pace car should be pulling in or crosses over the grass in the very last minute, but we're ready to go racing, Brian.
Absolutely. We've got Criddle and Brody Gunter lining up on the front row. They're going to take us to green. Gunter got a better start than Hill there on the outside. He's going to get pinched by Hill going into turn one, who's got the preferred line. They're still 2x2 all the way back to about 6th place there. You see that highlighter yellow car of James Watson. He's got Damian Dania ahead of him. Hill's going to slot into P2, though. Brody Gunter's going to take point, heading through Maggots and Beckett's for the first time on lap 1. Looks like everybody kept it clean as they're going to head on out to the hangar straight for the first time.
Green and clean for all of the drivers. Will it be the same here in the GT3 category as Corey Rutherford looks for a move on the 88 of Victor Aldrich? Up ahead, can't find the daylight as the Acuras seemingly work together, and Corey Rutherford gets a slip and slide moment, and seemingly the Acura does the exact same thing right in front. Didn't see any contact between the two drivers, but that doesn't mean that there'll be any love lost. Long race to be able to recover from, and the drivers will get a quick repair in the pit lanes to come back, but that will be a meatball flag for Corey Rutherford.
Yeah, it looks like while that was going on, there was some sympathy spins going up in the Daytona Prototype field as well between Travis Fleming and Brian Dees. Doesn't look like either one of them came away scarred or requiring a pit stop at this moment.
Both drivers seemingly free and clear right now. That will give the lead over to, excuse me, I was about to say for Keon Maduro, but Nidik Kume is trying to change that up. Currently running 8th overall, is now just a handful of tenths behind Keon Maduro, who's running the 188 Ford Mustang. You can see a glimpse of him there, and ever slightly getting bigger lap after lap.
Yeah, they got those two Daytona Prototypes working through them at the moment. Brian Dees and Travis Fleming. That's going to throw a little bit of a monkey wrench in their battle, but so far so good as far as passing there. Thankfully, as we talked about in the pre-race show, long straightaways, big, wide, flowing corners allows these Daytona Prototypes to really be able to pass the GT cars without much hassle. But we say that, going into the braking zone there, they seem pretty equal, and I'm sure Brian Dees wanted to get by there before the brake zone, but as it is, gets the job done. But Yanandi Kume is going to be the biggest beneficiary of that. He's closed right in on the back of that Mustang that he's battling with for P1 at the moment.
It's looking good for Nidik Kume. Excuse me, for Nidik Kume driving the 88. Excuse me, the 151 Ferrari. I was thinking of Victor Aldrich for a moment driving that Acura, because he's right there in the wings as well. Only 1/10 back as we go side by side through the most dangerous part of the track, the legal loop-de-loop hairpin section, and Kume tries to give the squeeze to Maduro here, coming out of Lovefield and Woodcott.
Yeah, they're going to run side by side as they go across the start-finish line and start their next lap. But heading down into one of the fastest corners, if not the fastest corner on the track. They're going to stick it side by side. Brave move from both of those drivers. You can tell there's a lot of respect between those two to be able to trust one another to take it too wide through there. And they're staying too wide as they head into Maggots and Beckett's now. Finally, Kume is going to give it up and slide in behind Maduro, and that Mustang gets a little bit of understeer from the dirty air coming off the back of that big booty Mustang in front of him. But he's going to look to close up now down the hangar straightaway, heading down into Stowe. Longest straightaway of the lap that these drivers are going to have. And as you said, with those two battling, it's allowing Victor Aldrich to slowly creep into the picture and make it a 3-car fight.
It's looking good there, but it's looking fierce here between the C7 Daytona prototypes. Brody Grunter leads Christopher Hill by 2.2 seconds. Damian Dania lurking in the wings, only a half second back from Christopher Hill.
Yeah, Hill and Dania round, what is this, 18 for these two? It seems like every single time they're on track together, they are always nose to tail, nip and tuck. And once again, they're fighting it out. Our two championship contenders at the moment leading championship, and even though they're second and third on the track, they're battling as if this is for the race win.
And it could potentially be for the championship win, as there's an off for Christopher Hill, and that might open up an opportunity for Dania now to come alongside at Maggots and Beckett's, but he thinks better of the situation and falls back in single file line, stays in third, locked and ready to go for now.
Yeah, Dania didn't have his usual good qualifying result, and so he's kind of fighting off the back foot to start this endurance race. 54 minutes still to go, so still a long way for these drivers. So Dania, usually a very aggressive but very clean racer, is certainly having to pick his moments on when he wants to attack, but all the same, he doesn't want to lose the back of Christopher Hill's Corvette in front of him, as that gap, since we've been watching it, has not fallen more than half a second at any point in time.
No, it has not, but we'll keep an eye on this one as well, as Ty Morasco and Victor Aldrich go toe-to-toe, this time coming down in towards Stowe. But the Mustang backs out, allows the 88 to skate right on through, and now the attacking move coming down in towards Club. No, the Ford Mustang again succeeds that position and understands this is a long race. We still have 53 minutes to go, but with points being awarded at the halfway point, how do you prepare yourself?
Yeah, it's the race within the race, right? So you got to measure your aggression. You got to keep the car in one piece to be there at the end, but you also want to try and maximize the points at the halfway mark as well. So will be interesting to see, especially with 2 pit stops, possibly 1 if anybody's really good at fuel saving, but figure most of these guys are probably going to have a 2-stop race with the way they're pushing right from the drop of the green flag in tonight's race. How that's going to pan out, as we saw Victor Aldrich in front of these two. No, that must be the joining Daniel Maglin in the other Acura. I was going to say, that looked like Victor Aldrich, but Aldrich is behind this battle of Maduro and Kume. So that is the recovering Miglin after he pit to clear his meatball flag after that lap 1 spin that he had with Corey Rutherford.
Able to recover using that quick repair and get back out on the racetrack, but unfortunately will be a lap down here in just a few moments time, falling to Keon Maduro and Nide Kume. We're going to get by before Stowe.
Yeah, Miglin doing the right thing there, just pulling off to the side, holding his line, letting off and letting this battle for the GT3 lead go by unencumbered, and he'll slot in and try and work his way back up to the lead laps now that he's way off strategy for pit cycle, I would imagine.
This could, however, set him up for success for the 30-minute mark, potentially. Who knows? With a very early pit stop, refuel, and new tires, if he can make it the remaining 28 minutes or so towards the end of the stint, maybe he can make up a couple of points in this race.
Certainly could be a possibility. Crazier things have happened to drivers that have been completely off strategy, so he can certainly look to apply pressure as well and maybe force Maduro or Kume in front of him into a mistake. You're allowed to race to get your lap back. It is certainly not a faux pas when it comes to sports car racing and multi-class racing. So we'll look to see if Miglin, sorry, I keep getting confused, Aldrich, the two Acuras, if Miglin can have the pace to stick with our GT3 leaders at the moment. But as it stands, they've, well, never mind. He just threw that off in the corner, so pace he will not have to get back on the lead lap, unfortunately, there for Daniel Miglin, who is having a very rough night here in Silverstone, England.
Unfortunate for Miglin again. And he might be out of this race tonight, unfortunately. Let's check in with Ty Morasco again, who's still trying to do work with Victor Aldrich here.
Yeah, Mustang's definitely looking strong tonight in the hands of Maduro and Morasco, the M&M brothers. As we see Ty Morasco all over the back end of that Acura that he's battling, currently being driven by Victor Aldrich as they work their way through Valen Club onto the farm straightaway, heading down into Abbey. I do have to wonder for some of these drivers, as we saw Daniel Miglin's big off that he had before his retirement, if they're fighting a little bit of confusion from having turned so many laps on the current layout of Silverstone. And a lot of these corners are the same, but they come up in different sequences throughout the lap, and so I'm wondering if some of these drivers are getting a little bit confused on where their next corner is, that they have to, they're thinking they're coming up to a different corner, is what I'm trying to say there.
Well, it's something that I described myself doing throughout my endurance races, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of the drivers potentially had that happen to them. And there's a mistake there from Victor Aldrich, allows Ty Morasco to pull right on through.
Speaking of mistakes, looks like Christopher Hill just had a lockup and a half spin that allowed Damian Dania to slip by into P2 while this battle on screen was going on. But yeah, Ty Morasco is showing no signs of confusion on this layout tonight. He is on attack mode from the drop of the green, and he has gotten around Victor Aldrich. And now that he's around Aldrich, I'll be curious to see how much gap he can pull as he tries to run down Nitakume, who's built a 7-second gap over this battle for P3. The battle for P1 kind of simmering at the moment between Maduro and Kume.
Battle here between Keon Maduro and Nitakume. And it looks like Kume has a good run on Maduro this time. On the long straightaway here, coming down in towards the backside of the racetrack, but couldn't find the daylight to make an attack happen. Still, these long-legged Ford Mustangs are very powerful on these long straightaways, and the Ferrari seemingly unable to keep up for now.
Yeah, it definitely seems that the Ferrari has the better measure of the Mustang going through some of these slower or medium speed corners like Luffield, versus on the long straightaways, the Hanger Straight and through Maggots and Beckett's and Chapel, the Mustang seems to have the measure of the Ferrari. As you see that game of cat and mouse going on between Kume and Maduro at the moment. I said the battle was simmering. It looks like the dial on the stove might have been turned up a couple notches as it's not simmering any longer.
No, it's not. It's ready to boil over in full pasta mode as the gap has come down to around half a second. Nitakume still trying to push as hard as he might. Here at Stowe, tries to close down the gap, brought it down to 3/10 at the apex, but loses out ground on exit through Vale on the entry to Club now. It will be Maduro in the lead for the GT3s, and it looks like Joshua Rutherford just had an incident going off track, came back right on.
Yeah, it looks like there was an incident for Ty Morasco as well. He was in that battle closely with Victor Aldrich for P3, but now he's over 10.5 seconds adrift of Aldrich, so might go back and see if we can find what happened to him, whether it was a track excursion or maybe a self-spin. Looks like we might have it pulled up here. Looks like he used up a little bit of that Mustang power too early there. Looks like that was exiting Berkman's perhaps. And the rear end said, I want to lead now for a change. And Ty Marasco's left being frustrated as a result of it.
110%. The rear end just became faster than the front end on Ty Marasco. And unfortunately, that'll send him down in P4. But he's still up 2 positions from where he started this event so far. The gap here at the front still separated by around half a second. Ever since Nidek Kume made that slight mistake, he's been outside of the slipstream range. I think he's going to slip further and further back down the straightaways now.
Yeah, definitely seeing an exercise in consistency out of Maduro here, who, as we've seen week in and week out so far in this ASRL championship season, has been the man to beat in GT3s. If he's on and he's not making any self-inflicted mistakes, he's very hard to beat based on consistency and pace alone. And I think he's demonstrating that again so far tonight as we're 15 minutes into the 60-minute endurance race.
15 minutes into one endurance race, but 15 minutes from another points award being given out. The race within the race still is on like Donkey Kong. Now, the question still remains as we approach the halfway point of this first heat, or this first stint, let's say, when do the drivers think it will be opportune for them to come down pit road? It's obviously not at the halfway point of this stint, otherwise the drivers would have already come down pit road or perhaps made a look for it at this point in time. But now they're not quite making that look, so maybe they're going to push this first stint as long as possible. It's just curious to me that they wouldn't have planned to come in if they have to make 2 stops anyways.
Yeah, curious if these drivers will, knowing that it's a 60-minute race, split it up into 3 sections of 20 minutes apiece, and so we'll start to see kind of that pit window open just after the 20-minute mark eclipses. But as you said, when you're navigating the race within a race, you have to kind of do a little bit of guesswork on what your competitors are doing and try and outthink them or figure out if your strategy is going to best them.
100% there. That is very, very true. Figure out how you can best your opponents on their strategy, because sometimes maybe an undercut might be the favorable strategy. Sometimes it could be the overcut being the favorable strategy. Looks like Victor Aldrich went off track for just a moment, but was able to recover and get back on the pavement. Checking in with the C7 prototypes, it's a 6.2 second gap from Brody Gunter to Damian Dania in that 98 machine right behind. Trying to close down the gap, but the last lap around's not looking good for Dania. 141.4 compared to a 140.7 from Brody Gunter in the lead. Christopher Hill not too far behind, 141.3 that last time around. He's down 2 positions from where he started this race. Thomas Crump in P4 with James Watson rounding out P5. Travis Fleming, Brian Dees, and Joshua Rutherford will round out the participants in the C7 Daytona Prototype category.
Yeah, we shouldn't be too surprised by the pace that Brody Gunter's got. For those that have been around all season would remember the first few rounds, Brody was only able to do the sprint race before he had to leave for conflict of school schedule. And so that kind of opened the door for Christopher Hill and Damian Dania to maximize points in the featured races. And then there was a few weeks that Brody just wasn't able to make it. And so he's back here tonight at Silverstone and dominating the race so far, showing off the pace that he's had all season. But hasn't been here in several weeks, so kind of was easy to forget that he was still around.
Yeah, until I saw his name up on the championship standings, I wasn't sure if this was a new name to the championship. but it's just a returning one in the grand scheme of things. Here is Brody Gunter now cashing up to the likes of, I believe that should be Ty Morasco up ahead, as Corey Rutherford is already down one. Yes, that is going to be the number one of Ty, who has a spin, but won't affect Brody Gunter at all.
Might have given him a little bit of a jump scare there as Brody was coming through the corner to see the red and blue Mustang spinning in front of him. But looks like something has happened to Christopher Hill as he has dropped behind Thomas Crump now and is sitting P4, down 3 spots on the race so far. Looks like potentially an off track going through Cops here. Oh yeah, just completely carries way too much speed in there and ends up deposited on the asphalt runoff for his troubles.
And a couple of wheels dipped off into the grass on entry wasn't going to help his traction at all. And that will send him behind Crump for now. 4.7 seconds, the new gap for Christopher Hill to try to surmount to get back up into the podium. Not a healthy race for him, as there's another spinning Ty Morasco who's not having a good week tonight.
No, definitely not having a good night. As looks like he had another issue with oversteer going through Cops and lost the back end and ended up in the wall. Unfortunately, the back end of his Mustang has seen much better days. Speaking of back ends of Mustangs, Nida Kume is all over the one of Keanu Maduro for the lead in GT3. Looks like that pot on the stove is well and truly starting to boil over, as you said.
The lap times finally coming Nida Kume's way the past few or so. Fortunate for him, but it is going to be that pit stop call being made for both of the drivers. Now, will this be an opportunity for anybody to get an overtake done during the pit stop cycle? We'll keep an eye on the pit lane camera to make sure the lead does not change here and now. Brody Gunter also comes down pit lane. Will that mean that Damian Dania is also going to make that excursion? No! And it looks like Nida Kume had to back up into his pit stall. And that's going to be a tremendous error for him and tons of time lost.
Yeah, definitely not what you need when you're taking full service for these cars, as that's going to allow Maduro to extend his lead by several seconds. As you see Christopher Hill come down pit road and pull into his box for his service, and Dania and Crump stay out to inherit first and second place on track. Kume releases from pit lane to resume his chasing of Keanu Maduro. I don't know why I just drew a blank on Maduro's name.
Time in the lane about 2 seconds slower for Nida Kume there, as he had to get backed up and re-dropped into position. The lead being inherited by Victor Aldrich now in the GT3 category, the number 88 into the lead. Black flag for Ty Morasco, who just cannot catch a break tonight. Unfortunate for him.
No, definitely cannot catch a break, and have to figure that that is incident related, as he has not made his way down pit yet. So it's not a speeding penalty or an unsafe pit entry. So have to figure that is incident related for the number 1 Mustang driver of Ty Morasco. As you said, 2 seconds longer in the box for Kume. That can be attributed to having to back up as he missed his pit box originally. You have to figure both drivers did the same service, full fuel, no tire change, and off they go again.
Brian Dees on pit road exit, Damian Dania and Thomas Crump on pit exit. James Watson makes his excursion down pit road, and Brody Gunter is going to be the next driver to inherit the lead now, as Dania is on pit exit by the looks of it, yes, and will not be able to catch up to Brody Gunter on the overcut. Importantly enough, the GT3 battle continues to spice up here, as the gap that was nearly 2 seconds now separated by just 0.3 of a second, as Kyo Maduro and Nida Kume slinky their times back together.
Yeah, Kume erasing that 2-second deficit that he got with that pit stop almost immediately coming out of the pits. As we see Brody Gunter in front of this battle lock up and run wide, dip a couple tires off in the grass, and then he gets going, rocketing down the straightaway again. Kume is going to show the nose, think about it. He's going to hop over the curb there, giving plenty of room to Maduro, and Maduro likewise giving room to Kume on the exit there.
It's a good-looking attack from Nida Kume. I think he just has to commit a little bit more than what he has done previously. The attempted move at Cops, he went off wide and let off the throttle substantially, and there goes Kume with a huge spin now coming out of Woodcott. And worse to worse for Nida Kume as he loops it once but twice now, trying to make it to the 30-minute mark.
Yeah, rare mistake out of Kume there. It looks like he just dropped the left side. He'll go back to the curb there. That's enough to send him around in a spin. And then, as you said, trying to get the car righted, spins again, probably flicked off the traction control momentarily to try and get that car whipped around 180, and unfortunately went a little bit further than 180 degrees there.
Well, that's really going to break things up for us now. Victor Aldrich, the car behind Nida Kume now, separating themselves by just 1.2 seconds on the racetrack.
Yeah, our closest battle on the track now is between Kume and Aldrich for P2 and GT3s.
Two minutes and 40 seconds remaining till we get to the points award section of the first half of this race. Any predictions now for the next 2 minutes, Brian?
No, it looks like everybody's come down to pit road, so I think it's just going to be stay in order and not make any mistakes. As I said, it looks like the closest battle we have is 1.2 seconds between Aldrich and Kume for second in GT3. Everybody else is kind of running in their own little bubble, but we do have lapping going on of the faster class over the slower GT3, so that could throw a monkey wrench in or two if there's a bad pass or somebody gets spooked while a Daytona Prototype is lapping somebody. But as things stand, I think everybody will kind of hold station through the halfway point of this race.
Absolutely true. I think we're gonna just hold fast for now until we get to the halfway point. As you saw, the drivers breaking this up into thirds, 20-20-20 being the stints or thereabouts for their stints. So expect to see another pit stop take place with just about 20 to go, as my math is mathing.
Your math's as good as mine, so I will trust it for now. Figuring our drivers came in a little bit after the 20-minute mark, so figure another 20 minutes or so of running for our drivers before their next pit stop would leave about 15 or 20 minutes left in the race for them to sort out where everybody's going to finish this race tonight. as we see that highlighter yellow machine of James Watson coming up on our battle for P2. Watson having a quiet night tonight after some solid performances the last few weeks. He qualified P5 and is still running P5, so I guess it's a good night if you're not making mistakes.
Yeah, I guess that's something we haven't really talked about here at Silverstone, was the battle with the racetrack. It's not normally a track that I would consider to be a tough one to master, but again, we have seen drivers lose track of where they necessarily are on track and potentially lose some track position that way. But for the most part, drivers have been fairly clean and green, other than unfortunate for Ty Marasco, who's had the worst of it luck tonight. Of course, at the beginning of the race, we had Victor Aldrich and Corey Rutherford seemingly pirouetting at Stowe simultaneously, or doing that in synchronized fashion at the very least.
Yeah, and you had a similar incident between Joshua Rutherford, or I'm sorry, Travis Fleming and Brian Dees as well in the Daytona Prototype class. So even though the Olympics are over, there's still some figure skating going on the racetrack, it looked like, with those two sets of pairs spinning together. But as the stand, everybody seems to be holding station, running clean. Barring a few off tracks here and there that pop up, and poor Ty Marasco, he's sitting in the pits contemplating his choices at the moment. I feel, as you said, not the best of races for him tonight so far.
No, unfortunately not going his way. He was a strong shower at Charlotte Roval, but the race didn't go his way there either. Again, just succumbing to mistakes, individualized or localized mistakes, costing him the result I think he wishes he had gotten at the end of the day.
Yeah, just the self-enforced error during the sprint race at Charlotte, but certainly made up for it in the feature race as well, and seemed excited for tonight's race, but and was certainly a challenger early on. Definitely had the pace to challenge both Victor Aldrich and Nitty Kume, but too many self-inflicted mistakes. Not sure if it's just, as we talked about, confusion on where exactly he was on the track, or just something with the setup on the Mustang tonight that is not vibing with the track conditions. But either way, unfortunately, sitting in P5, which is still not a bad result, but I'm sure he would like to be out there contending for a higher position instead of sitting in the pits as he is at the moment. But right now we're just watching our Daytona Prototype competitors cycle through the GT3 field as James Watson puts a move on Keanu Maduro. Brody Gunter is coming up to lap, I'm not sure who that is in front of him, perhaps Travis Fleming.
Brian Dees, I believe.
Could be. I was trying to see if I could get a glimpse of the color scheme on that Daytona Prototype, but yes, Brian Dees is who the victim is up ahead to be put a lap down by the Gold Mine Racing driver, currently leading our race overall.
Brody Gunter having a little bit of a conversation there with Brian Dees at nearly 180 miles an hour into the braking zone of Stowe, and a little bit of no you sir, no after you sir going on there, but the conversation is exchanged well, and Brody Gunter is able to get by Brian Dees, who's now down a lap in the class.
Yeah, in the land of distinguished gentlemen, you saw a couple of them right there as Brian Dees made sure to make way for our leader Brody Gunter to go through, and Brody Gunter saying thank you very much. I appreciate the respect shown there as he sets his targets on Corey Rutherford to put the Ferrari driver another lap down. currently about 15 seconds up the road from our overall leader.
Now, the halfway point has already come and gone, meaning that Brody Gunter, Damien Dania, Christopher Hill are going to get the 1, 2, 3 for the points in the C7 Daytonas. Keon Maduro, Nidikume, Victor Aldrich, the 1, 2, 3 in the GT3 category, meaning that they will get awarded those coveted points at the halfway point, and then full points being awarded at the official 1 hour mark. 25 minutes and 10 seconds remaining in this race, folks. Who is going to come out on top?
Yeah, definitely strong showings for Brody Gunter tonight as he makes his return to the series after several weeks away. He's currently sitting on a 6.4 second lead over championship contender Damien Dania, who's got a further 7 seconds in hand over Christopher Hill. And in GT3, a similar story. Keanu Maduro, our championship leader, has got 4.6 seconds in hand over Nidikume, who's got another 4.6 seconds or so back to Victor Aldrich in his 88 Acura. Everybody's still pushing hard, though. I still see some off-tracks popping up occasionally as our drivers go beyond the white lines and the curbs that are around this 17-turn circuit.
And Victor Aldrich, who's slinkied forward and backwards right now, is sitting pretty. Last lap around being a 1:49.08 for him. Drivers ahead lapping in the 150 range, so he's definitely got the pace to keep up with the best of the rest. He is getting lapped, though, by Corey Rutherford, who just put down a 1:47.99 that last time around. So that gap seemingly coming down, but a 28-second margin to come down in 23 minutes of racing. That's a steep climb. This man right here, currently 9th position overall, but first place in the class, Keon Maduro, has been pretty much flawless from the word go. Has led us from the green flag to the halfway point of the race. Has definitely gotten those coveted points at the halfway point. And now is looking forward to the remaining stage of the race. The pit stop cycle is about to become open for the final stage of the race, as we saw the drivers have just about 22 minutes of fuel for them to run, so they were able to push that first stint about 22 minutes. Expect this next stint to be pushed about 44 minutes or so. So within the next 2 to 4 minutes, we can expect to see the drivers come down pit road. All the way down until the 15-minute mark is when I think the drivers will still have enough fuel to make it to the end.
Yeah, and speaking of fuel, I'm having to wonder if Keanu Maduro is potentially doing a little bit of fuel saving at the moment. Just looking at last lap times, he's been about 1.5 seconds slower than Nidikume over the last few laps, and so that's seen that gap come down from almost 5 seconds to, well, it was about 3.5 seconds. Now it's back up to about 4 seconds. So have to wonder. We did talk with Corey Rutherford before the race tonight, and he said that the limit on fuel was intended to make it a 2 pit stop race. It's not mandatory to make 2 pit stops. If somebody wanted to fuel save and only do 1, they certainly could. Whether or not that's possible in these cars remains to be seen, but have to think that potentially Keanu Maduro, with that big lead that he has had, might be entertaining that idea at the moment.
He could very well try with the gap that he has back to Nidikume in the 151. But shall it be so a one-stopper tonight? It will be hard-pressed to think that he could do it after the length of his first stint and the way that he was pushing with Nidikume. I figured if he was going to make it a one-stopper, he would have had to have saved for that first stint as well. But the drivers are going to know best here how to deal with the ever-changing conditions here at Silverstone.
Yeah, and a little bit of commentator's curse, more so just the timing of when we talk about this, because just as we were talking about it, Keanu Maduro breaks out a mid-47 lap time. Meanwhile, Keanu Aldridge behind him are into the 49s, so whatever fuel saving he did, whatever target he was trying to reach, he may have reached it and decided that he can go back on the attack, or perhaps he was dealing with some traffic that we just didn't catch. Not 100% sure. But speaking of pit stops, Christopher Hill is our first caller down pit road for the second go-around. With 20 minutes to go, this is about when we expected our drivers to hit pit lane. And so Christopher Hill currently sitting P3 in the race. Not seeing the car go up on jack stands, so I have to assume this is just a fuel and go pit stop for our 101 driver. As he starts rolling, looks like a 13.7 pit stop in the box time. Roughly about the same as his first go, so figure another full fuel load as he slots out in front of James Watson.
Christopher Hill being the first to blink, Brian Dees the second, but unfortunately he's still sitting in pit lane, so I'm not sure if he'll make it out on track as he falls behind the GT3 field now. James Watson with a big wiggle under braking behind Christopher Hill. I think he was just trying to follow that line, but with the low fuel load, I think the brake balance was just a little too far off for him to try to follow suit. He's not battling him for position because James Watson still has to make his second pit stop of the night.
Absolutely, and Victor Aldrich has come in and is heading back out again for his second and final pit stop. He is the only one of our GT3 runners at the moment to have come in and taken his last service of the night. 18 minutes to go now. Should expect the rest of our field to come down to pit lane either this lap or the next lap.
Must say, Brian Zinn, sorry, as I was looking at Brian Dees, thinking about him and thinking about you as well. No, you called the pit stop cycle pitch perfectly. The driver's breaking this up into thirds, breaking it down to the 15-minute mark. I think you called this one absolutely perfectly, Brian Zinn. It's like you're in the minds of the drivers tonight.
Yeah, you can say I've done this a time or two, right?
Yeah, right?
We see Travis Fleming come in for his pit stop, pitting out of P6. Keanu Maduro goes around for another time in GT3 lead, as does Brody Gunter in the overall lead. Looking at last lap times, Daniel was slightly faster than Brody Gunter, but only by about 0.3 of a second, so those two drivers are keeping pace with one another. No real time gained or lost between those two. And in GT3, about 0.7 between Maduro and Kume on that last lap, so those two keeping roughly the same pace as well. Last time around for the first pit stop, Maduro and Kume pitted on the same lap. Corey Rutherford, currently P3, pitted one lap later than those two in front of him. So we'll see if Maduro makes his way into pit lane this time by.
Yeah, it looks like he is posturing for it, but not quite jumping at the opportunity just yet. Just 15:40 left to go. Do you think he's considering going to the end now?
I don't think he can make it to the end, but I definitely think that those slower laps that he ran a few laps ago has allowed him to stretch the time needed before having to get down pit road, which is going to make for a shorter final stop. And I have to say the same as well for Nikume, as well as he has not come down to pit lane either, nor has Corey Rutherford, currently sitting in P3. So what's this going to do is it's going to create a shorter final stop than Victor Aldrich took, currently P4. Not sure if that's enough to allow Corey Rutherford to stay out ahead of Victor Aldrich, but we will have to monitor that and see.
That time's about identical between Aldrich and Corey Rutherford. Last time around 47.99 compared to a 48.48 for Aldrich as James Watson comes in to take that final pit stop of the race, but from behind Christopher Hill. I don't believe he should lose a position to Travis Fleming, if I'm mistaken.
No, Watson should come out and maintain his P5 position. Travis Fleming has pit though, so he does not need to worry about coming in. So any sort of battle that would happen would be for position, with both drivers having completed their pit cycle. And finally, Maduro makes his way into pit lane for his final stop of the race. We'll have to see if Kume follows in behind him, and he does as well. Brody Gunter, though, almost got in the back of Nidikume coming into pit lane there. Was on the binders hard, car wiggling all over the place in pit entry. But no collision happened. Everybody kept their body panels straight and intact.
You know, like they say in the military, almost only counts for grenades and horseshoes, my friend. Almost running into someone is just not an accident, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Might result in a few hand gestures, but certainly nothing worthy of getting into an altercation over, as Brody Gunter has resumed back on track. Damian Dania stays out for another lap and assumes the race lead for the time being, but have to figure he's going to make his final call down pit road this time by, as we see him exit what would be the final corner, but is not the final corner. So he navigates through the old bridge complex there. This is the section that I was talking about during the pre-race show about the lack of character that I severely missed. I miss that bridge complex on the new layout. But Dania coming through left field and Woodcott there. He is going to stay out for another lap.
Wow. Damian Dania did come in on lap 14, same lap as Thomas Crump there.
Yeah, Crump and Dania are only remaining drivers to not pit, as there is a spin from Nidikume and he rips the rear spoiler off his Ferrari. Oh, goodness me, and he's got himself a meatball flag.
Oh, no.
I was going to say that's all but going to turn P3 over to Corey Rutherford there, who you saw go through and by him at the last frame there, but gets on the curb, gets on the grass, and that's all she wrote. Oh, such an unfortunate result. Man, Christopher Hill got really lucky to not get collected by the ricocheting Ferrari there.
Very true that he did not get collected. He was a lucky duck, that's for sure. That will be a meatball flag for Kume, taking him out of this race, at least for now, until he can get the tow time plus the repair time taken care of. That'll send him at least 2 laps down. Corey Rutherford now inherits P3 because he's driving mean and clean so far in the Ferrari.
Yeah, the Rutherford last of the survivors. Kume is going to tow back to the pits, but not lose any further ground as Marasco is still in pit lane, and Miglin, Chindamo, Maxwell, and Estep have unfortunately all retired or did not start in tonight's race. So for Kume, it'll still be a P4, but the results on the final sheet will not tell the whole story there. Dania finally makes his way down pit road for his final pit stop. This is going to be a very short pit stop. We'll see if it's shorter than the 10 seconds that Brody Gunter was stationary in his box, though. We see Brody Gunter go by into P1 once again. And Thomas Crump makes his call down to pit road as well, the last of our drivers to make their second pit stop in tonight's race.
Christopher Hill now is able to get by Crump in the pits there, and it looked like Nide Kume was actually on his way out onto circuit again to finish out this race. So hats off to Nide Kume and his battle for the end now.
Yeah, absolutely. Could have chose to pack it in the truck and call it a night there with having 7 laps in hand over Ty Marasco's car, but oh goodness me, Brody Gunter has gone off. Damian Dania is going to slot in to take the lead with 8 minutes left in the race. What has happened to Brody Gunter?
Oh, and he just locks up the rear end, and Dania is able to walk right on through. Let's go back over to the live and see what the gap looks like. 1.4, 1.6 seconds-ish between Dania and Brody Gunter. And in the final 8 minutes of this race, the battle for the C7 Daytona lead is very much alive.
Yeah, what looked like it was well in hand for Brody Gunter. He makes a self-inflicted mistake there, and for the time being hands the race lead to our championship leader, Damian Dania.
Absolutely fantastic stuff here from ASRL, the Sports Car Championship, brought to you by the Racers Nexus. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Thank you very much for staying tuned. It's a pleasure to be your host. I'm Sagar Bakshi. Joining me in the Racers Nexus broadcast booth has been Brian Dees tonight. 7 minutes and 30 seconds remaining on the clock. Who's going to come out on top? Will it be Dania or will it be Gunter?
Yeah, Gunter, you can see pushing hard to try and make up that time lost from that mistake. He's hanging the back end out, exiting the corner back there over the curb. Has to be careful not to have another spin there, though. But definitely looks like the tires are not wanting to help Brody Gunter out here at the end of this endurance race. He is slipping and sliding all over the track there as he's trying to push and make up 2 seconds to Dania in front.
60 minutes is a long time to push these cars, and it's even longer stint to push these tires. The way that Brody Gunter has been demanding traction from the rubber beneath him has been a challenge for him to keep it beneath him this entire race. One tiny mistake is all it took, and a lockup in the rear end that spun him round allowed Dania to come through, and with 6 minutes left to go, that'll leave us with just a handful of laps remaining in this race.
Yeah, last time around, Dania was 6/10 faster than Gunter. I think that was kind of shown with how much Gunter was struggling for traction coming out of some of these corners and dropping wheels off on the backside of the curbs there. And that gap that was about 1.5 seconds has grown to almost 2.5 seconds now, as Dania is starting to run away with this one in the closing laps of the race.
The gap seemingly escaping Brody Gunter right now. 2.5 as it keeps on expanding lap after lap, time after time, as my girl Cyndi Lauper would say.
Ah, great song. Nice reference.
Checking out the GT3 field, it'll be Keon Maduro leading by 16.8 seconds. Whatever he was doing earlier on in the stint to preserve the tires or save some fuel has definitely worked out for him, because he's managed to stay ahead now of Victor Aldrich and Nidik Kume by a healthy margin. Corey Rutherford in P3 right now, about 21 seconds back from Victor Aldrich in P2.
Yeah, it looks like Brody Gunter's tires are gone. He had another mistake, and now that gap for the lead has grown to over 7.5 seconds now. So, unfortunate to see for Brody Gunter. Had this race in hand for a long time, but unfortunately, looks like he's going to give it away to Daniel tonight with just over 5 minutes left. So we see Corey Rutherford working through and having a lazy spin there. Just got on the power slightly too early. Waits for the passing James Watson to go by before rejoining. Well done.
And has a long way back to Kume before he has to worry about getting past. So it's looking good for Corey Rutherford's podium tonight.
Yeah, I'm sure when we talk to Corey Rutherford and ask him if he envision a podium being on the cards tonight, he'll probably say no, but just surviving and not making as many mistakes as your competitors can yield you some pretty good results. And that's where Corey Rutherford finds himself in P3 at the moment. And speaking of handing results to you, that's certainly the story for Damian Dania tonight. Did not have the outright pace to run down Brody Gunter, but a couple of small mistakes from Gunter, and those positions have reversed, with Dania now leading and having a healthy margin of 7.5 seconds over Gunter. As we come to less than 3 to go, as Dania flashes across the start-finish line to complete another lap.
That'll leave us with just 2 to go here at Silverstone, folks. This one plus one more, meaning we'll conclude on lap 35 here tonight.
Last time around was a 141.8 for Brody Gunter, but a 142.0 for Dania. So 0.2 in favor of Gunter, but 0.2 is not going to do a lot when you've got 7+ seconds to make up of a gap between you and your competitor. Dania, I'm sure, knows in the back of his mind the mistakes that Gunter has made tonight and the problem areas for this car around this circuit, and is probably not pushing 100% as he doesn't want to suffer a brake lockup himself or a tire skid or a slide or anything else that could cost him time to the cars behind him. I kind of reference this to clock management in the NFL. You don't want to turn the ball over, but you want to burn off as many seconds as you can and not give your competitors any chance to try and come back at you. As we see Dania flash around with 1:20 to go. This should be white flag. Let's see if Barney is waving the flag. I believe he was.
This will be the white flag lap. 14 Fastish Racing started in third, ended up in first with just 1 minute remaining. 60 seconds on the clock for the ASRL Sports Car Championship, Round 8, brought to you by Purple Haze Motorsports.
Dania going to make his way down the hangar straight to Stowe for the final time in the race tonight. Currently sitting on 8.5 second gap to Brody Gunter behind, who's got another 15 seconds, to Christopher Hill behind. Rounding out your provisional podium spot. Keeping it nice and tidy coming through club there onto the current front straightaway. Daniel making his way through Bridge down to Priory. Heading into Brooklands and Luffield and Woodcott for the final time. To see him pulled up there with our driver camera as he's going to celebrate another victory here in this season. Cheers of elation from the 98 driver there. Damien Dania is going to be your Corvette Daytona Prototype winner tonight in the second and final endurance race of the ASRL season. Brody Gunter is going to come home in P2 and sitting there wondering, man, what if?
Christopher Hill is going to round out that podium and bring home P3 with Thomas Crump 10 seconds back, bringing home P4. James Watson in 5th, Travis Fleming in 6th, Joshua Rutherford in 7th, with Brian Dees taking a DNF in 8th place. Over to the GT3s, it will be Keon Maduro taking the checkered flag in P1 for the 188 Ford Mustang. Victor Aldrich in P2, Corey Rutherford in 3rd will round out the podium.
Yeah, and another driver wondering what if tonight Nakume is going to find himself finishing P4, a lap down to our GT3 winner there. As you see Maduro, he's going to burn it down, celebrating yet another win on the season tonight.
And we'll get ready to pull in our race winners for their interviews here in just a few moments. Let's go ahead and take a look at our results first and foremost. For the C7s, it was Damien Dania, Brody Gunter, and Christopher Hill taking the 1, 2, 3. Thomas Crump, James Watson, Travis Fleming, Joshua Rutherford, and Brian Dees will round out the top 8. Over to you, Brian, for the GT3s.
Yeah, Keanu Maduro dominates tonight in GT3s, but it's going to be Victor Aldrich and Corey Rutherford rounding out your podium, followed by Nitakume, Ty Marasco, Daniel Miglin, Cole Maxwell, Ken Estep, and Martin Chindamo.
And let's go ahead and grab Damien Dania and start talking to our race winner. Dania, how are you doing, man? What an amazing result you had tonight.
All right, fix it. Sorry, can you ask the question again? My audio's broken.
Hey, Dania, just saying, what an amazing result you had tonight. You started from the back of the pack, worked your way through the field. It wasn't easy.
Yeah, it was a tough race, but I put it down mostly to luck to me winning today. I mean, I think I had probably the best tires of anyone at the end, so I was quite a bit faster. But I'd say I was probably the third or second fastest today. But yeah, the pace was very good throughout the race due to everyone else spinning, so I managed to just to build up a nice gap after Chris spun and then after Brody spun twice. So I got a 0x, so 3 extra points on top of that. I don't know how I did that.
Very nice. Well, keeping it clean was only half of the victory for you tonight. You had to have the pace. Talk to us about how you prepared for an endurance race like this. Did you already know what the pit stop strategy was going to come out looking like, or did you play it on the fly?
When I'm always doing long races, I do quite a bit of. I don't do long races in iRacing usually. I do a lot of endurance races in Automobilista too. I've done a few around this track as well in the GT1 cars, but yeah, when you do that, it's basically just fuel save as much as possible and just be as careful as possible. Don't make any mistakes. Never lock up because it'll wreck your tires. And that was what I did. At the end, I had like three laps of extra fuel at the end, so I could have probably even been in the lead without the spins, if anything. But yeah, it was I did make some decisions on the fly, like I pitted 1 lap early on my second stint, just because I was pretty close on fuel. Like 1.0, I could really know what the exact value was. But yeah, it was good and well planned. So yeah.
Right on. Anybody you'd like to shout out or anybody you'd like to thank tonight, Dania?
Yeah, big shout out to Mom and Dad, of course, as always. Big shout out to you guys for broadcasting. I'm sure it was not the most exciting race from your end. It was mostly single file. Besides that, yeah, I ain't got much. I'm really tired. Sorry, I had a really long day.
Thank you very much for joining us in the broadcast booth, brought to you by Racers Nexus. We'll talk to you in 1 week's time for round 9.
Yep, see ya.
Brian's in. Why don't you go ahead and talk to Brody Gunter, who came home in P2 for the C7 Daytona Prototypes.
Yeah, Brody, you made your return to the championship tonight and led a good majority of the laps tonight, but a couple self-inflicted mistakes, I'm sure, are leaving you wondering what if, but talk us through your race tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I was just happy to be competitive since I hadn't driven the car since I believe it was my last race at Indianapolis, I believe it was. So to be up there with Hill and Damien, who I've been doing most of the season, I assume since then, after the exit not being in the car for a good amount of time, I'll definitely take it. I did not expect that, especially to come away at the lead on lap 1 on the outside of turn 1. So had some good moments. Sadly, toward the end there, yeah, tire wear started really hitting me. I feel like it was hitting me and Hill both. Damien did a great job. It seems like saving the tires or running the same lap times as us. So he was doing something a little bit different than us there, I could tell. I don't know exactly what, but hopefully I can find it in the future. But yeah, and I think the main spin that got me, it's kind of killed my tires, and definitely for the rest of the race was it just kind of got a little squirrely under braking, and the rear kicked out just a tiny bit and clipped the grass and just sent the car around to that chicane toward the last corner, what would be the current Silverstone layout.
Yeah, and with these cars not having the new tire model, certainly seems that mistakes hamper the recovery of the tires as well. So what's kind of your future for the rest of the championship? I know you've got some schooling that kind of conflicts with doing most of the feature races, but are you planning on doing any more races going forward?
I like to come out to the sprints for the last two track of the season as much as I can. My reason I said I'll do the entire race tonight was I got spring break for this week, so I don't got anything early in the morning tomorrow, thankfully, for this week. But yeah, what holds for the next 2 weeks, I'll have to find out.
Understandable, but before we let you go tonight, any folks you want to give a shout out to?
CGI Graphics, Mutmies Productions, Corey for putting on this league at ASRL, as well as you guys at Nexus Racer for broadcasting this. Appreciate everyone.
Absolutely. Well, we'll let you get out of here and look forward to seeing you in the sprint race next week at Monza.
All right, thank you.
Next up, we have our GT3 class winner. It'll be Keon Maduro. Now, Maduro, that was a great race and controlled by you from green to checkered flag. Talk to us about how you were able to pull that out.
I did some practice today with my teammate Nite, and that got me to win today. I feel like I got lucky because he was having issues with his wheelbase. He did an update before, and it cost him dearly today. So yeah, I think I got lucky, and also I did practice, so both of those things helped
Definitely.
contributed to the win.
Practice pays a ton of dividends at the end of the day, and your practice was pitch perfect for you here tonight. Now, Maduro, is there anything you wish your race went a little bit better, or anything in your race that didn't go right, perchance?
I mean, I feel like everything went how I expected it. Like, other than fuel, I got a other than having to fuel, I got more time to fuel save. So after I was in that battle with Nite and he went off, I was like, this is an opportunity for me to fuel saved and save the tires. So I that's the only thing that I had an upper hand on tonight was like I had the opportunity to fuel save and save more of my tires throughout that race, and that got me the win too.
For sure. Anybody you'd like to shout out or anybody you'd like to thank tonight?
I'd like to thank you guys again for always broadcasting, showing up every race, and putting on the show for people at home and friends. Let's probably have some family members that were watching. I'd like to thank them, my homeboy Nite for practicing with me today, and getting his practice in. Corey for putting on the league, and my wife as usual.
Right on. Thank you very much for joining us in the Racers Nexus broadcast booth, Mr. Maduro. Have a great night, and as always, make sure you stay safe out there.
All right. Thank you guys, and have a good night as well.
And last but not least, it'll be Victor Aldrich. And let's hear from Victor Aldrich, Brian.
Yeah, Victor, coming home P2 tonight. What was your game plan? Did you feel like you had anything for Kiana tonight, or were you just kind of running your own race?
Yeah, I was really running my own race. I tend to do that here at most road courses, just kind of find my rhythm and then just see how the cards fall. And I knew Keon had a lot of pace tonight, and Kumi, he had a good pace too. And so I was just kind of riding for third, and they kept kind of making mistakes and coming back to me. It was a tortoise and hare situation almost. And I just kind of kept my head down and tried to not make any mistakes. And that's something I kind of take a lot of pride in, is just being consistent and smooth and not making those mistakes. So one of these days, maybe it'll fall into my lap where we get a P1, but very happy to come away with second tonight.
Absolutely. And with 2 rounds left, and next week being at the Monza combined layout, what's your game plan or thoughts heading into that unique track on this season's calendar?
Yeah, so a bit different than here at Silverstone. I'm used to running a lot of rain races here at Silverstone, so I think that might have helped me here also. But I thrive in chaos, so put me in something that people tend to have a lot of trouble in, or maybe there might be incidents or just people aren't patient. That's where I'm going to shine. And so I think tracks like that, street courses and then Monza combined, is definitely right up my alley, where things might fall my way, and who knows, could come away with the first win of the season. And only got a few races left to do it, so fingers crossed.
All right, man. Well, before we let you get out of here, any folks you'd like to give a shout out to?
Of course, yeah. Thank you guys for putting on the show and letting us guys have some fun out here and playing it back. Thanks to Corey and the league for putting this all together too, and my team, Team Watson Racing setups, James Watson, Chris Hill, Dan Miglin. Congrats to Keon on the win. That was a good job by him today. Want to thank or shout out Dizzy V Designs. That's actually my design team that I actually run. So if you ever need a paint job, just hit me up. I can help you out with any paint jobs if you need any. I also have a new album out. Check it out. It's under Dizzy V on all major platforms, called The Last Show on Earth. Be sure to check that out. If you like hip hop, it's kind of like an alternative hip hop style. And we going on tour here pretty soon. So if you're in the California, Denver, Vegas, New York area, we'll probably see you soon.
Awesome, man. Well, we'll let you get out of here, and best of luck next week at Monza.
Right on. Thanks, guys.
Right on. Brian Zinn, any big takeaways from tonight, my friend?
Yeah, the race isn't over till it's over. You know, it looked like Gunter had it in hand for a good majority of the race, but just a couple small mistakes. Definitely weren't anything major, but a couple of mistakes was all it took to hand the win to Dania tonight. And for Dania, who's battling Hill in the championship, those are precious points, especially with the 3 bonus points for keeping it clean all race as well, which, given the track limits at Silverstone, is a very tricky thing to do. So definitely as much as we were wondering how the race was going to pan out with it being an endurance race tonight, ended up being quite action packed at the end of it there. And going to Monza, which on its own is a track known for chaos, but then you throw in the combined layout, which uses the old 1950s and 60s high banked oval sections as well, and it's just turning the dial up to 11 on the chaos scale there. So that'll be good fun to watch these drivers navigate, and I hope pretty good turnout comes out to experience that craziness. But 2 races left, and I don't think we can say any of these championships are decided, certainly not in the Daytona Prototype class between Hill and Dania. But as we turn to the final 2 weeks, I expect things to get ramped up quite a bit.
Things are spicy in the championship. Things are going to stay spicy on the racetrack. Gotta say, everybody, it's been a pleasure to be your host. I've been Sagar Bakshi. This has been week 8 at Silverstone Circuit. Joining me in the Racers Nexus broadcast booth has been Brian Zinn, providing you with the wonderful commentary alongside me. Thank you very much to Brian Zinn and the Racers Nexus broadcast team. Thank you very much to the ASRL organization as well. Big shout out to our title sponsor, Apex Sim Racing and Track Cams for Gourmet. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for staying tuned. But good night for now from Silverstone. We'll see you in 1 week's time at Monza. Have a great night. And as always, make sure you stay safe out there. Bye-bye for now.